Growing up in the 70s, the early 70s, mid 70s, and the late 70s. Well, how was that for me? Now, I want to talk about how growing up in the 70s, the late 70s, going into the 80s, early 80s, for as far as making money. I want to talk about that in this episode of Body of Christ, Real Talk, with your host, Joseph Brownlee. Welcome to the show. Welcome, 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 everyone. God bless you all. May God's grace and peace keep you all. We all have a story, or we should have a story, or we should remember our growing up. Now, what I'm going to talk about now is what we call a side hustle today, or a side gig today. I was doing that when I was young. I'm 60 years old now, and I was doing that when I was young. Matter of fact, many of us in the neighborhood, in the Morgan Park area and abroad, had side hustles. Some people cut the grass. One of the big side hustles when I remember was paper routes, which both of my brothers, Tony and Benny, had paper routes for a while. And they was an example of being independent, independently, or being an entrepreneur, whether they knew that or not. That's kind of an entrepreneurial spirit that a lot of us had in the neighborhoods, you know. And what do I mean by that? Uh, that independent entrepreneur freelancing type of lifestyle, it's been around for years. It's nothing new. It's nothing new. And what do I mean by that? That means you creating wealth without a boss. You creating your own wealth independently by your works and what you are doing for someone. It's capitalism in action, the old traditional way. You're trading your goods for a monetary gain, if I want to put it that way. You're trading your skill in goods, whatever it is, for a payment. You're independent. There's no taxes. There's nothing. What we got there was cash. It was no checks. It was cash because everything was personal. Everything that we did was personal. It wasn't through no system of a job. It was no money trail or nothing like that. No paper trail. It was independently made. And that's been going on for years, the 30s. You pop bottles and everything. I remember growing up in the 70s. I remember the side hustles that I had, the young entrepreneurial spirit that I had then growing up in myself, to the point of collecting pop bottles. Remember pop bottles? You get so much money off pop bottles. Well, some people might say soda bottles. I might call them something else now. But then, let's go back now. This is my story. We called them pop bottles. And you get 5 cents or sometimes 10 cents for pop bottles. We take them up to DeCoven stores, walk up, because DeCoven is right up the street from me on Elizabeth Street in Morgan Park. This is in Chicago. I know everybody's in different cities and different nations, but I'm just talking about personal story in Chicago and Morgan Park. We take pop bottles up there and get 5 and 10 cents for. But you have to hustle for the pop bottles, and it wasn't hard. Pop bottles was everywhere. And that was a form of making our own money, even though I got allowance from my dad, stuff like that, and I had to work for that allowance from my dad. I gave that story on that Father's Day special to my dad in the last podcast. Please check that out. But we used to hustle pop bottles, take them up to the store, give them to Ronald. Ronald was one of the workers there. He was just multitasking everywhere. And we get 5, 10 cents. We get a case of bottles. It depends how many bottles we had. You get so much money. So it was a lot of people doing that. A lot of youngsters and friends that done that. Because we was hustlers. We was the Bowery boys of the Morgan Park areas. We was hustlers. That was a way of making money back then, of showing our independence, how I wanted to be independent then. Now, what was another way I became independent? Helping people with their groceries. You have to see, it was all works. And the way to make money and helping people with their groceries, you have to get to the stores, grocery stores. And what I would do, and what we would do, because that was popular too, wait outside, and when somebody come out with their groceries, we'll ask them, may I help you with your groceries? A lot of them said yes then, and then as we helped them with their groceries, we got paid. I don't remember what it was. It wasn't much, but it was much then because of the dollar was more higher and stronger then. And I made a few dollars. I keep saying we because a lot of us, sometimes be three or four of us out there doing the same thing. We be competing, trying to get to that person first so we can help them with our groceries. They are groceries to get paid. That was another hustle, but you have to compete with others. Pop bottles, you didn't have to compete too much because, you know, the only thing you wanted to make sure you had a lot of bottles. You had people coming up with carts and stuff full of pop bottles because it went a long way, 5 to 10 cents per bottle. Went a long way for a young person. But when it came to helping people with their groceries and putting it in their cars, you had to compete, and you had to find a store where it was not many people out there doing what you was doing, because that was one of the side hustles then, growing up. But you have to compete. It was frustrating at times, but it was good when you did finally get your hustle by finding that person that you can help with their groceries and you got paid for it. So capitalism always been a way that you trade your skills and your services, no matter how good or bad they was. People paid you for what you done for them. Another side hustle I used to do, is cutting grass. Cutting grass or whatever's later on down the line, but helping, neighbors with their yards and cutting grass and different things like that. That was another side hustle. Not a lot, but I used to help this lady across the street from me in Elizabeth Street. And her name was Miss Riggins. I would help her with her garden then, or Mr. Garnett, another man that lived on the corner, help him with some housework and different things. A lot of housework helping and stuff like that was another hustle that I done. Another hustle I got into was I used to deliver papers. Now my brothers and them, they deliver papers. It was more like a job for them. It wasn't so much independent. They got paid for someone. But what I'm talking about, I did too when it came to sales paper. Uh, my somewhat boss lived on the next block from me. And I used to get a basket and put those sale papers in there and just put them on the porch and deliver them in the neighborhood. It's amazing how much energy you had then, you know, walking around and all that and everything. The heat didn't even bother you too much because we was young. I was young. So there's many side hustles that I did growing up. Now I'm talking about my real young years. I done that quite a bit, but I'm just talking about my years in the early 70s and the mid 70s and stuff like that growing up. Now this is my story of the side hustles that I did. And now why am I talking about this? Because all those years I had an independent mind. I'd done a lot of things I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, independent person, even though I didn't know too much what that entrepreneur meant. That wasn't used a lot then. But being your own boss and want to create your own wealth. That has been in me for years, man. And I think about if I would have just pursued it and stick with it, where would I be today? I think about that sometimes, not in a sad way, but I think about that sometimes. Where would I be today if I would have pursued a lot of those things? But anyway, I go back and I look and I say, wow, that tenacity I had to make my own money always been there with me. Doing things myself always been there with me, even through my mental struggles. That has been with me. I used to fantasize having my own money. I used to fantasize have my own little entrepreneur business. I remember investing in some books, and the author was called Mr. Wright. And I think that was early times of the multi-level marketing or the pyramid scheme then. I remember doing that. You know, what you do, you it was always like what they call PLR. Today you buy somebody else's book and you resell a book. It was something like that. They call it PLR. You got the public rights to resell books. A lot of digital marketing does that now. Then you have PLR rights or PL or master PLR rights. There's a difference. You have a right on some books now that you can resell. You can buy and resell them. Buy them for a discount and resell them. And the master resell. You can buy the books for yourself. They could become yours. And then you have a master resales, right, where you can buy somebody else's literature, somebody else's book, and you have the master right to resell them. It's a lot of that going on now in digital marketing and ebooks, all on the internet. A lot of people sell their ebooks, and they have the rights to even change the titles on them. I don't go that far and everything, which is nothing wrong with that. You can do that, but I just feel like that's not me. I didn't even write the book, so why should I put my name on it? I just be honest and let them know it's somebody else's book, but I am selling it. That's the way I roll. But anyway, I was doing things, looking into things. Then I remember I done a lot of pyramid schemes that they call now, but I didn't know it was a pyramid scheme. And I remember sending $2 out. I was told if I put it in the envelope, I bought some addresses. I put it on the envelope. I put a couple of dollars in there, and I just send it to the address and tell that people to just keep sending it back to me or whatever like that. If what goes around, it was like paying it forward, but you're trying to look for something coming back. That never worked. I lost a few dollars. I lost a few dollars because it's supposed to have came back to me, you know. And what happened, you send, I don't remember right off the back, but you send it around, you tell a person to send you $2, and then you send a $2 and back. It was something like that, but that was like part of a pyramid, and I didn't know it did, but it never worked for me. See, those things, I'm letting you know, I always had that entrepreneur mind. A lot of them did not work, and I was very creative with it, and I did copy some ways of people saying doing things like those books, but it never went nowhere because I didn't pursue it any longer. And I cut it short. I cut the biblical cord short and never pursued it. But my point is, growing up in the 70s, there were so many independent entrepreneurs in the neighborhood trying to make their own money. Now, we didn't know about being an entrepreneur, but I know one thing, we wanted to make our own money. So that was like a normal thing growing up there. You had a side hustle. Most of the youngsters I grew up with, we had side hustles that we'll trade our services and our skills for monetary gain. But it was ours. We got 100% of payment. We didn't have to get taxes tucked out and everything like that. We didn't have to share it or whatever like that. We got 100% paid. See, $2. I got all my $2. $5. I got all my $5. That was back then of being independent. And why is I talking about that? That same mentality can be applied today. And it needs to be applied today in many of our lives of just trying to be more independent now and building our own business or personal way of bringing in passive income. Because the way things are going and where a lot of joblessness is happening now and we're depending on the boss, which is nothing wrong with that, why not me? Why not be your own boss? And I'm going to be making up a little short series I call it the Derrick Rose theory. If you know what I'm talking about, with Derrick Rose, they was talking about the MVP, and Derrick Rose said, "Why not me? How come I can't be the MVP? Why come it can't be me?" That's what I'm going to be talking about in the upcoming episodes on a financial gain that we have the opportunity to do now and bring wealth, whatever your wealth ceiling is. Why not me? I'm getting bored to that in the next coming episodes of Body of Christ Real Talk, a biblical perspective on how to become independently wealthy. God bless you all. Peace out. Love you all.